Buenas tardes, buenos días a todos.
No, good morning to all of you. I would like to start my presentation, how could it be anywhere else, speaking about the last 25 months that I'm working in REPSOL, in insurance, which are the first 25 months. The number 25 is going to come out many times. 25 years of experience. I'm going to be double so old. This year, 25th edition. The first edition took place when I wasn't even working. However, what I would like to recognize, first of all, that I feel very proud of this first 25 months. This is a business based on people. It requires a technical and financial backup and also a long-term relationship with the different stakeholders. Some of these people I'm going to speak about them because some of them have made it possible for me to be here, like Juanjo, Antonio, Maria Jesus, José Luis, José Carlos, Héctor, Ramon, Maria Ángel. These are people of the Mapfre and REPSOL team, and I'm lucky enough to participate in this program because the experience has been great this last 25 months. We have been working in a very dynamic and easy way. My presentation is going to be quite straightforward. It's to simply show you the value of a work that has started a long time ago. I would also like to take Bosco's words that he mentioned in the first or the second round table of what he stated, but not from, I would like to speak from the client side, because you have mentioned the name Alfredo, and it's the person that I'm here, and it was the first persons that invited me to lunch, and I learned about this business. From the energy sector, from REPSOL, I would like to ask you for an energetic and warm applause for Alfredo, please.
I'm positive that Alfredo is getting the next meeting ready. I hope I can speak to him about that soon. The next element is to highlight the topic of the title, strategic cooperation. There are two types of strategic cooperation, the ones that are signed amongst presidents for the future, and they may take place or not. And then the second one is the one I like to speak about, which is what my professional experience has a lot to say about, which is the confirmation that a customer and a service provider meet for many years because they know each other well. So you have a company that is helping you achieve what you want. It is the everyday collaboration, everyday facing the challenges what helps us. And this has made Mapfre a strategic partner. We have not signed any strategic agreement. We may do it, but the fact that we have 25 years of work together is what makes me satisfied. I have several elements that I want to share with you. One about the energy sector, or what to know about the role of REPSOL globally. And the second one is get to know the company. What are we doing? Where are we? What challenges do we have ahead of us? The third one, the program. A program that last week we managed to renew with the participation of all the brokers and all the insurance markets. So I want to thank them for the effort. And finally, I would like to explain where we are now and the things that we're doing, REPSOL and Mapfre, within the program of insurance in REPSOL. During the presentation, I'm going to invite you to 3 trips. The first one is a trip to oil worldwide. Then we're going to commission a platform in the North Sea in less than 2 minutes. And then we're going to explain the investment projects, the most important ones developed by REPSOL in 2016 in 3 main countries: Spain, Portugal and Peru. The orange color, we're not as intense as red, but we use two mottos that are very important: time moves with us and let's invent the future. The good thing about these mottos is the feeling that we have to be a company that is proactive, a dynamic one, anticipating elements, and a very innovating one, as opposed to what we may have as a preconception of the energy sector. The growth of any economy in the world requires three elements, the most important one being people and talent, second one capital and technology, and the third one energy. Because of efficiency, energy is the biggest indicator of economic growth, 40 to 60% in the graphic, as you can see here. The second element on the right, you can see how some energies have gained ground with regard to others in the last 40 years, and we can be surprised the energy that has grown more in the last few years, which is China. All energies are necessary. Companies have to act on them. The feeling of REPSOL is becoming an energy company globally, but we are a company that is mainly dealing with oil and gas, so we have to adapt ourselves to the new challenges. The graphic below shows that demand may grow depending on the commitments of the world to a kinder world, like in the case of the agreement in Paris. This is very important. REPSOL is committed, Spain is committed, most of the countries are committed, China is as well. But regardless of the demand growing more or less, the role of oil is going to be relevant. All energies are going to be relevant in a transition period. But we have to play the game, and it has to be played with a global approach. You can see the central graphic that shows the policies that governments are trying to implement, and we can see a situation of contraction of the demand, which has to do more with the agreement in Paris and the non-increase of 2 degrees. We can maybe go through a visit to the world of oil. So can we play the video that travels around the world of oil?
Bienvenidos. Hoy quiero compartir con vosotros una historia. La historia del viaje del petróleo. Atención, que comenzamos. El petróleo significa aceite de piedra y es un líquido graso, inflamable y no soluble en agua, que está compuesto por la mezcla de hidrocarburos que se formaron durante millones de años gracias a las reacciones químicas producidas por el calor y la presión en el interior de la Tierra y la descomposición de restos de animales, plantas y microorganismos marinos. Se encuentra en las cuencas sedimentarias, ya sean terrestres o marinas, concentradas en 8 grandes zonas petrolíferas en diversos puntos del planeta. A lo largo de la historia ha tenido multitud de usos, como por ejemplo, para la impermeabilización de barcos en Sumeria, el embalsamado de momias en Egipto, como adhesivo en construcción en Asiria y Babilonia, o como combustible para la iluminación en diversas culturas. En la Edad Media se usaba con fines curativos, y en el siglo XIX fue el responsable de la revolución industrial y de los medios de transporte, hasta convertirse en la fuente de energía y materias primas más importante de la actualidad. A día de hoy, a través de la exploración y gracias a nuestros expertos geólogos, detectamos los yacimientos comercialmente explotables mediante las técnicas científicas y tecnológicas más avanzadas para poder realizar con éxito la perforación. Llegado a este momento, realizamos unos orificios muy profundos llamados pozos. donde valoramos la cantidad y calidad del petróleo y gas encontrados y, si son favorables, procedemos a su extracción. Mediante las técnicas de inyección de agua, gas o bombeo, obtenemos el petróleo crudo. Y para aprovechar todos sus componentes, a través de buques petroleros, camiones cisterna y oleoductos, lo transportamos a los tanques de almacenamiento, donde se reserva hasta ser conducido a las refinerías. Allí es donde lo destilamos para conseguir un gran número de derivados, como asfalto, cauchos, diésel o gasolina, detergentes, ceras, lubricantes, poliéster, insecticidas, fármacos, pinturas, plásticos, así como multitud de productos imprescindibles en la industria y en nuestra vida cotidiana. Y gracias a nuestra tecnología de última generación y a la excelencia de nuestros profesionales, garantizamos la sostenibilidad de todos nuestros procesos, logrando un mundo mejor para todos. Repsol, un viaje hacia el futuro.
Bueno,
Well, what I wanted to share with you with this is that if oil was in the Fifth Avenue in New York, everything would be easier, but it is not there. So a graphic shows that 50% of the consumption of oil in the world, which includes 10% of the production and only 5% of the reserves, is in Europe and Asia Pacific. But 10% of consumption associated to 30% of production and 50% of the reserves is in the Middle East. And we have a dynamic area, which is North America, where we have 20 to 25% of consumption, production and reserves, and they've managed to innovate and to reinvent themselves to generate an autonomous energy, which is economic. In the areas where we have plenty of reserves, there are big public companies, and the efficiency of the company is associated to the efficiency of the country, and this brings about a certain degree of complexity. And there's a new trend of consuming more oil outside the OECD than inside the OECD, and the role of the OPEP, the Organization of Petroleum Producing Countries, is increasingly less. This is altering the dynamics of prices. Here on your right, you can see that the demand of oil is going to grow little, 0.5% at the most, but the need to replace what is produced every day, which is 6% a year, in 4 or 5 years we will have to replace a third part of the total production today. So we have to have a long-term production which is foreseeable, and especially thinking about the results and the short-term ability to be funded. Here you have a declaration of principles in REPSOL. We are an energy provider which is safe and sustainable. We're in the middle of a transition in the world of energy towards a new situation. And both nationally and internationally, we have to think about policies that enable us to reach those goals efficiently. Our president speaks quite frequently about the right to operate, the right to be in many countries, generating value for society and for stakeholders around. This is very important. A strategic plan has been focused on 2 concepts. One is resilience, associated to an environment of low prices where we have to be more efficient, and we have to be capable of of managing adequately our portfolio. We have a business which is quite international, both in exploration and production, and we have more of a regional business in refining, marketing, chemical, etc. Although we have some international components as well. We also have a relevant participation in Gas Natural Fenosa, which is a utility company at a global scale, one of the most important ones in the world, integrated in gas and power, which will play an important role in this regard. Some figures to speak about the company. Probably the biggest element is the right of exploration in a surface that is half of Spain. We have reserves of 2,500 million barrels. We have a production of almost 700,000 barrels a day, 240 million barrels a year. A great deal of the production is gas, which is a different energy, maybe a transition one more than oil. In Spain and Peru, we transform this into products that are traded through our service networks. 4 million tons of chemical products, 2 million GDP, and 5,000 stations, petrol stations. So one of the elements is sustainability. We have a commitment to sustainability, so please let me remind you 3 elements. Number 1, through efficiency programs and the CO2 agreement, we have managed to avoid more than 4 million tons a year in emissions. This is 3 million CO2 emissions in vehicles. So we have the commitment to increase up to 5 at the end of the decade. The transition will be according to what we decide, but we have to avoid somehow too simple debates and discussions, because electric vehicles, in this case, it is very important to know where we get the energy from. Obviously, electric production and carbon makes the vehicle more polluting. So we have to think about the consumption mix and the reasonable mix that we have to achieve. REPSOL has been the first company to issue a green bond. What's a green bond? You are demanded to have investments that have to do with refining and chemical products, and in this particular case we will invest this money to reduce further the emissions. And another element that I'm glad to see people from the companies of this sector. We created an oil and gas initiative where we're going to invest $10 billion in 10 years to develop projects in this respect. In the year 2016, even though it was a difficult year, in as much as prices of oil, REPSOL was one of the few companies generating positive cash flow with no need for reinvestments, with no need of disinvestments in this particular case. And we applied all the disinvestments program in the various companies to the reduction of the third of the debt in 1 year. So here you can see that the behavior in the stock markets has been quite good. Hopefully, in this year 2017, we will be able to continue with the same line. We can speak about upstream and downstream. Upstream is global. We're in more than 40 countries. This is Alaska. Last week, we announced the biggest offshore gas finding in Spain, in Trinidad and Tobago. We have 30% of the producer. Our partner is British Petroleum. And a month ago, we announced the discovery in Alaska of 1.2 billion in resources. These are two examples of our findings in a risk market. A survey may cost up to $150 million. Developing a greenfield project could be 5 to 10 years. The production period could be 5 to 15 to 20 years. And then you have to leave everything as it was. So I'm going to show you a video on how we left a platform in the middle of the North Sea. So can we please see the video?
Been working in REPSOL during more than 11 years. Probably this is the one that better represents the values of the company. The motivation that the people have to deliver the project this year was wonderful. Makes a tremendous difference in the results.
New concept, lots of prototypes, lots of innovation, meaning that we need to kind of look into things that we haven't seen before, and that is kind of really a step forward for the industry. You see the flames coming out of the legs, and we know that there's no way back. It's the only way we can go is go forward and complete the project and complete the lift. Of course, when you execute such special project, it brings the company to another level. That's for sure.
Bueno, tardamos algo más de 2 minutos en hacerlo. En realidad, el barco
It took us more than 2 minutes to do it. It took 5 years to do it. We needed a calm sea for 72 hours to carry out that in August last year, and it was 30 million kilos to be taken up to raise the platform and take it to a safe harbor. I do invite you to speak with García Lorenzo and Blesa, the leaders of markets and apps in REPSOL that have been very active in the process. Very quickly. 4 geographic areas in upstream. The first 2, the ones where production is higher than reserves from the point of view of participation. These ones are Europe, Africa and Brazil, and then we have Asia and Russia. We are in the middle of a process of the market becoming mature, and these areas will decline as it happened in Europe and Africa. We have an area which is the other way around. We have more production, more reserve. We have more reserves than production. 60% of the reserves, 40% of the production. We are in 7 different countries, and this helps us compensate one and the other. So we have a growing case in Brazil, but not only in Brazil. And then we have another area in which we are more balanced and the dynamic is different, which is the non-conventional in North America. There's a capacity to decrease the time to exploit the locations, and it is being managed in a completely different manner. What is relevant? We have 2/3 of our production, which is gas, and 3/4 of that, which is also gas. And this is important when having a long-term view for the role of the energy mix and the positioning. Only three figures to summarize 2016. We managed to produce at $60 the barrel, but the oil was at 40. The benefits of downstream and natural gas have compensated for this gap that we obviously have in this year and in next year to make Repsol a self-sufficient company in upstream. What is the replacement rate for the reserves? The fact that we always have a full fridge. We have found 103% more reserves than we have produced. So if we have produced 250, we have found 260 million. The ratio in reserves and production, we have reserves to maintain this for 10 years in 90% of the cases. This is a good symptom of good health in the middle term. From the point of view of exposure, our exposure in upstream is basically associations between 15 and 51%. We don't have exposures at 100%. They are diversified, but all of them may be maybe 50% of all the assets in the company, in the world. And there's an unequal behavior in material damage, exposure, and the control of the area to continue to produce. If we move to downstream, downstream is the heart of Repsol. Spain has less than 1% of autonomous production of oil and gas. And there's a big amount of renewable energies compared with other countries. This million of barrels that we produce every day in Spain, we could maybe think whether we could have the refineries in other place. For more than 30 years, no refinery has been built in any country in the OECD. The two projects that Repsol has tried to invest to double the refinery in Cartagena in size and to improve the one in Petronor in Bilbao. 5 billion euros have been invested in these two spots, and this has guaranteed our employment and guarantees that we have an autonomy in the delivery of services. And Repsol has a great deal of this production of its own through its own network. This sounds a little bit more like some of the speeches that we heard yesterday on how Mapfre distributes the products all around the world. From the physical perspective. Concerning refineries, we have in Spain and Peru. The 5 in Spain are managed as one. They are globally managed through the network of GLP, chemicals, etc. Especially the ones in Puerto Llano and Tarragona, the complex in Sines in Portugal. So we have 9 exposures in 7 locations. In the last video, we're going to see the main investments in downstream last year. So again, another video.
I'd like to thank, obviously, the engineering company, Técnicas Reunidas, to be specific, the construction company, SACIR, which was a leader in the Peru project, and obviously the insurance market, and specifically Mapfre, which provided us coverage for this relevant project. I cannot resist the temptation to state, especially to José Luis Garrido, the CRO and fan of Atlético de Madrid, the red and white tower that you see is not because we are fans of Atlético Madrid. It's because it's next to the Reus airport and has to be signaled or has to be painted differently. But I'm also a fan of Atlético de Madrid. Well, in order to finish and to explain our program in the last 10 minutes and our collaboration with Mapfre, at the end of the day, when you invest, and if you invest well in an integrated business, you generate a competitive advantage. And I believe we have been able to do so. This should not sleep on the laurels, but to keep on working so that this ranking in which REPSOL is always in the tier one of companies and want to continue to be there. Now, looking at the REPSOL risk, more than 13 assets are going to be visited by engineers of our brokers and by your brokers, the Mapfre brokers, essentially, which are very active. The best way that we have to explain our risk is that you take a look at it and that you're able to contrast it, and you will be able to see that we comply with best practices. We would like to thank you for all your commitment with all the REPSOL's engineering program, and more than half of the assets will be visited by Mapfre engineers. Simply to finish with the downstream business, here we have the gas stations, which is a business focused in Spain, Italy, Portugal and Peru. It's quite important to us. And the most international chemical business, presence in more than 90 countries and in association with some local partners. Our exposition is different here. We have 9 assets in 7 locations, which represents 90% of the whole risk of the downstream. There is a risk with GRP business, gas stations, and this is the important expositions which have been increased, unfortunately, due to the improve of the profit margins in refinery and in the chemical industry. But it's forced us to change some parts of the program in which Mapfre has to play a main role. The truth is that when one has a good internal team and good partners on a long term, that it's always easier to explain of what we have done. We have a strategic plan focused on value and resilience. We have overcome a difficult financial situation, but we have a much healthier balance sheet. We have an organizational model in which we want to provide more autonomy to our businesses, and we want to be adjusted, and we have a very upstream, which is very complex. We have improved we have the casualty rate to less than 30%, by more than 30%, and with a very reduced casualty rate in the market. But it's nevertheless true in today's that we face new risks, new exposures, and we have to explain you what we have done to cover them. We have OEL as a mutual company for gas and energy sector allows us to advance and to be in a more competitive situation, to socialize casualties and risk with others that are similar to us, and we have a market situation which is the one that it is and the one that we have to work with. Essentially, what we have to do, or what we have done so far, is the best to improve the analysis of our risk exposure and to associate to cover them. We have looked at the impact, the increase of $500 million of the risk that we might suffer in the Tarragona refinery are associated to the petrochemical sector to be able to cover it. And we also have increased substantially the deductibles. First, the businesses to have so they get a reduction in their premiums and reduce our our insurance cost, attorneys' costs, and expert costs, but we have increased also the deductibles in the market. We have maintained a similar risk in our captive, but with an increased volatility. And this is what we have done. How have we done so? Well, as you can appreciate here, this is our program. We have modified it, especially the apps that covers material damages and the other risk, but we have restructured our program in the downstream, creating two excess layers of 1 billion among both of those to cover both exposures. We have improved our increase in coverage on terrorism. Think about Libya, where we have restarted, fortunately, production at the end of the past year, and also we have increased our coverage against political violence. We also, in a very robust program with Mapfre, we have increased our civil liability limits on the terrestrial and maritime sector. We have increased our civil liability and our environmental responsibility. We have increased our coverage on fracking. We have maintained the coverage for goods, and we have increased and initiated an adventure, because in the prior roundtable or the last roundtable, they were talking that the new exposures are difficult to assess because there's no track record. And my objective is to do something about it, and we will have to learn on the road by walking and not waiting for the casualty to increase understanding. And we've started with a coverage of material damage and profit loss. And so this is now more concentrated and better known. These are the main elements to return to the markets. In other words, we have returned to the market half of the premiums, because the market is the way it is, or while we have reduced the deductible, there was no approach to cost reduction, but to adjust to the risk. And 3 years we go to the corporate executive meeting to see what we got, what do we have, to explain the cost and the risk that we can retain or transfer, and finally to explain what have been the results and the premiums that our businesses might have during the coming year. So, well, and now we have to, in the 7 minutes that I have left, according to the watch, we have to speak about Mapfre. And I'm simply going to give you a track record of what we do. Mapfre appears everywhere, as you can see. On the left, we issue insurance policies in more than 30 countries, and the insurance company is Mapfre. Mapfre was capable, in front of other alternatives, to gain a fronting process, knowing the needs that REPSOL had in the whole world, especially in a new area like the Asia Pacific. One, they looked for the local partners, and since last year we issued insurance policies in all those countries. Insurance policies are insured by Mapfre, in which Mapfre reinsures through the reinsurance companies. So of $100 million, which are the premiums that our businesses pay to Mapfre in the whole world, and that Mapfre pays to Mapfre local, we retain 40% in Gaviota, and the excess is transferred to the market. Of what we transfer to generate a good dynamic relationship with Mapfre on casualties, Mapfre retains a part of that risk in Gaviota, and therefore Mapfre has a very important role as an insurer of our reinsurance on a world level or world scale. Now we will see it in two other pages. So as you can see, this is a relationship since an integrated insurance program from REPSOL was created. These are not 25, it's 29 years here. The volume of premiums managed is relevant. We issued more than 60 policies in more than 50 countries, and we have a captive in Luxembourg, well capitalized. The rating of the insurance is also important. Think about a company without a rating has a 10 times default possibility or potential than a rated company. It's not only interesting to know who is behind us. I pay and I get paid and I pay simultaneously. We didn't have the experience, thanks God. But it's nevertheless true. We have managed 5,000 casualties casualties in 30 years, and we have 300 active casualties. With a new change of philosophy, we will go from 100 casualties a year to less than 40. So I believe we are going to focus on the relevant issues that the company wants us to focus on, and we're going to transfer to the market due to coverage policies of the deductibles, part of that frequency business. Obviously, the insurer of our relevant program, and with active presence in the majority of the inspections on site. I would also like to announce, and this is the adequate forum, the right forum to do so, Mapfre, in terms of capacity to our insurances, civil liability, profit loss, casualties. In the last week, it has reached the leadership as REPSOL. And here, the other companies, you have the nationality there. Obviously, they are quite relevant. All of them have improved their commitment with REPSOL, and we are very thankful to them. Some of them have been early on debating among themselves, others not. And here, what I would like to say is to really repeat the work well done and the long-term relationship and the association. Last week, we published the barometer of the Real Institute of Elcano, which says of what the perception of the Spaniards in 12 countries, and we got a 7.1. Between 7 and 7.5 is Italy, France, the United Kingdom, the US, Japan is a little bit higher. But we are the only country, together with another one, continental country and also southern country, in which we ourselves assess us or evaluate us worse than the others. The Americans think they're the best, the French, the British, of course, the Germans. I believe this is a company, the Mapfre doesn't have to envy any other company. They have played an important role in REPSOL, and they will continue to do so. And they're helping us to cover our exposure, our increased exposure. Second news, it's a world co-leader of our excess program of $7 billion, and the third one, that the premium volumes, 10% of our premiums go to Mapfre, or will go to Mapfre in this month, which is when we have to pay them. These are three important news. We have Spanish companies with a global vision, and I wanted to underline it. It's also relevant to explain, together with all of the things that I've stated, that Mapfre is a company which ensures the health of 20,000 workers in Spain. It's a company which also ensures the managers, and in those special policies, Mapfre is always, I like the presidential aviation, plane insurance, and the art policy, and we have also a great Penotech. So anyhow, finally, there's a radio reporter, reporter who likes to ask questions, to look at, let's say, you can call it a stress test. And now, this is what we have done with Mapfre. What you can see on the left is a picture of Mapfre and REPSOL. I believe global, it's quite clear, we're both global. Insurance company is quite clear after the news that I've just given to you. And trust, we have gone to the Royal Academy of the Language. It's the firm trust that you have in somebody. I believe our firm trust after 25 years can't be any more trustworthy. And there's also a fourth element. It's service-oriented company. And this 25 months have been very satisfactory due to the understanding of our need to provide us with the right product. 25 years ago, also in January, in Spain, something was created. It was called IBEX 35, and it was called and continues. But out of the 35 companies, only 10 are left. The truth is, it's an honor for us to be one of those 10. And Mapfre, it's also the other one. We are 2 out of the 10 companies which have survived 25 years after. This is quite relevant because Mapfre 25 years ago and REPSOL 25 years ago didn't seem anything like the current one, because we have known, I believe, to advance, to walk, and to make the right management and this profitable growth, which was commented on yesterday. For me, it's very important, and it's a proof of robustness and commitment. But after stating these words, we have to continue to advance. Somebody stated that when we had all the responses, they changed the questions. So don't be afraid. I'm going to ask many questions in the future, and especially to Mapfre. Thank you to all of you.